Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions.
Questions are going to be found. I'm looking at the questions right now. I gotta refresh it cause I don't know what I'm doing.
Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions.
That's the Finding Twitter Questions song with food in my mouth.
Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Wait, I totally ruined the tune. I don't remember the tune anymore. Finding Twitter questions,
No. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions.
Oh, yeah. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. I'm filming myself because Ian's over there wiping his nose.
Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions.
Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Whoa.
That sounded like a dog.
Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions.
Sorry, I kind of interrupted you.
Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Ow!
Oh. Uh-oh. You guys want to sing the Finding Twitter Questions song?
Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. What the heck are questions?
Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions.
Whoa. Hold on.
Wasn't there a song that somebody made for us?
Oh, yeah.
After lunch you may have some indigestion, but it's time to find a suggestion. Finding questions, Twitter questions. Finding questions, Twitter questions.
Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. I got two hands this time, so it's a lot more intense. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Why do I always move my arm like this?
Because you have some sort of physical deformity.
Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter. I'm singing it wrong. How does it go again?
Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Hey!
Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions.
What about Titter Kesha's?
If I need Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions.
Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter. Is that quite enough? Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions,
Yeah. Shut the f*** up.
Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Not funny. Some people still think it's funny. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. The screen is so big that my eyes are going to bleed. That was good food.
Fail.
Finding Twitter question time. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Okay. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. I don't want to do it anymore. Finding medieval Twitter questions, finding medieval Twitter questions. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. I can't do it without shaking my arm around, okay? Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions.
Hey, Anthony.
What?
What time is it?
I don't know, but my arm is telling me it's time for something.
What could that be?
Not what you might think. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter. I really am right here on my phone. I'm finding them. Stop it. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions.
Shut the f*** up!
Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, No, that was sped up really fast. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions.
Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, and I am Anthony, and I am really dumb.
Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. That's the end. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Haha, I beat you. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Finding Twitter questions. I'm not even gonna let you ask me what I'm gonna do. Wait, was that a foodgasm or?
I'm not gonna say. That's for me to know and you to find out.
Finding your mom time. I found her last night in my bed.
Unamused.
Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter... No, I'm not gonna sing Twitter song for you. I'm not gonna sing the song that sounds like finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. I'm not gonna sing that
And
one.
you're not gonna pump your arm.
I'm not gonna go like this, or this, or this, or this, or this.
Don't do it. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions.
Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions.
Next level, finding Twitter questions song while drinking. Achieved.
Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. 1 year of the Finding Twitter questions song. Twitter questions.
Perfect. Next time we'll say it in English, where the finding isn't silent. Finding Twitter questions.
Whining litter bastions.
Yep.
Whining litter bastions, whining litter bastions. Twitter question time. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. 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 Oh, I actually punched myself in the belly. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Finding Twitter questions. Finding Twitter questions. Asking Twitter questions, asking Twitter questions.
Wait, you're not finding them anymore?
I haven't even asked, so how could I be finding?
Oh. Then ask those Twitter questions.
Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions.
Hey, Harley.
Yeah?
I believe it's time for something.
What?
This is the point where you sing the...
Dessert?
No, not yet. This is the point where you sing the Finding Twitter questions song.
F***ing sing? Don't you watch my show?
Can you at least just talk with some melody?
Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions.
Yes!
Oh, that was
That's
great.
perfect.
Aw, I'm gaining.
That was the best singing I've ever heard. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions.
But today's gonna be different.
Why? Is it because I'm gonna say finding Tumblr questions, finding Tumblr questions?
Well, yes, it is. But I think we should have a different song for Tumblr questions.
Like what? Gonna find some Tumblr questions, gonna make it fun. Then I'm going to do something with Ian's mom.
That'll be the temporary song, but I don't want that to be the permanent
do.
one. Tumblr questions!
Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. It's gonna get more intense every single time until eventually my head just explodes.
I think you need to do it again.
Finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions, finding Twitter questions. Best song in the world ever because it's very clever.
Balls!